They say money reveals who people really are, but I never imagined it would reveal that my wife of 15 years was capable of murder. This is the story of how a legal document almost became my death sentence, how the woman sleeping next to me every night was planning to poison me, and how the person I paid the least attention to became the reason I'm still alive. If you've ever trusted someone completely, if you've ever wondered who the people around you really are when no one is watching, you need to hear what happened when my wife found out she was getting nothing in my will. Hit that subscribe button because this story will make you question everyone in your life and remind you that sometimes your guardian angel is hiding in plain sight. My name is Richard Adebayo, 52 years old, CEO of Adebayo Construction Limited, and for 15 years I thought I had the perfect marriage. Perfect house in Victoria Island. Perfect wife who knew exactly what to wear to every Owambe party and business dinner. Perfect children in expensive private schools. Perfect life that looked flawless from the outside. Victoria was everything Lagos society expected in a successful man's wife. Beautiful, elegant, always perfectly dressed with that kind of confidence that comes from knowing you're married to money. She moved through our social circles like she owned them, which, in a way, she thought she did. We had staff, of course, a driver, a gardener, a housekeeper. And Grace Okoro, our maid, quiet, hard-working, been with us for 8 years. The kind of person you barely notice because they make your life run so smoothly that you forget they exist. Always cleaning, cooking, serving, then disappearing into the background like a shadow you only see when the light hits just right. I should have paid more attention to Grace, because in the end, she's the only one who truly saw everything. Let me take you back to November 15th, 2023, the day that changed everything. Though I didn't know it at the time, my lawyer, Barrister Okonkwo, called me around 3 p.m. "Mr. Adebayo, your updated will is ready for review. Should I send it over to your office, or would you prefer to collect it tomorrow?" "Send it over," I told him. "I want to review it tonight." Standard procedure. I was updating my estate planning, the kind of responsible financial planning that successful men do. Making sure my assets were properly distributed, my children's futures secured, my legacy protected. What I didn't know was that this document would soon become evidence in an attempted murder case. The papers arrived by courier around 5 p.m. I brought them home and left them on my study desk, planning to review them after dinner. Just another Tuesday evening in the Adebayo household. Victoria was in the living room watching one of her Turkish series. She was obsessed with these dramatic shows about betrayal and revenge. I should have seen the irony. The children were doing homework in their rooms. Grace was preparing dinner in the kitchen, humming softly like she always did when she cooked. Just another normal evening in what I thought was a happy home. Around 11 p.m., after the children had gone to bed and Victoria had said goodnight, I heard papers rustling from my study. I was in our bedroom, getting ready for bed, and I assumed Victoria was looking for something, maybe checking the household budget files or looking for some document she needed. I thought nothing of it. After all, we were married. We shared everything, right? What I didn't know was that Victoria was reading the document that would make her decide I needed to die. See, updating my will hadn't been just about responsible financial planning. It had been about something much darker. For months, I had suspected Victoria was having an affair, strange phone calls that ended when I walked into the room, unexplained absences, new jewelry and clothes that she claimed were gifts from her sisters. A distance between us that felt like more than just the natural cooling that happens in long marriages. So I hired a private investigator. What he found was worse than an affair. Victoria wasn't just cheating on me with my business partner, Kunle Ogundaipe. They were systematically stealing from our family business. They had opened a joint account. They were buying properties in her maiden name using money diverted from construction contracts. For 3 years, my wife and my business partner had been building their own empire using my money, planning their future together while pretending to be loyal to me. The private investigator's report was attached to my new will. Photos of them together. Bank statements showing the stolen money, property deeds in her name. evidence that the woman I trusted with my life had been robbing me blind. But the real shock for Victoria wasn't just discovering that I knew about her affair and theft. It was discovering what that knowledge meant for her future. In my new will, Victoria would receive nothing, not 1 naira, not one property, not one investment. Everything would go to our children, managed by a trust that she couldn't touch. Victoria Adebayo, who had spent 15 years playing the perfect wife while planning her escape with my money, would be left with exactly what she deserved. Nothing. That night, as I slept peacefully next to my wife, I had no idea she was lying awake planning my murder. The next morning, Victoria was different. I noticed it immediately at breakfast. She was quiet, distracted, kept staring at me with this strange expression I couldn't quite read. Not angry exactly. More like calculating. "Darling, are you okay?" I asked, spreading butter on my toast. "Fine," she said, but her voice was flat, cold. She hadn't touched her food. "You sure? You seem distant." She gave me a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Just thinking about some things. Planning for the future." If I had known what kind of future she was planning, I would have run. For the next 3 days, Victoria was different, overly attentive in a way that felt performative. She would bring me coffee without being asked, massage my shoulders while I worked, ask detailed questions about my schedule, my meetings, my plans. At the time, I thought she was making an effort to reconnect. Maybe she sensed that something was wrong in our marriage and was trying to fix it. I was actually pleased that she seemed to be paying me more attention. I had no idea she was studying my routines, looking for the perfect opportunity to kill me. Friday morning, November 18th, the day I almost died. I was in my home office reviewing contracts for a new housing development in Lekki. It was about 10 a.m. and I had back-to-back meetings scheduled for the afternoon. Victoria knocked on my office door, something she rarely did when I was working. "Come in," I called. She entered, carrying a tray with a steaming cup of coffee and some biscuits. She was dressed in a beautiful dress, hair perfectly done, looking like the picture of a caring wife. "You've been working so hard, darling," she said, setting the tray on my desk. "I made your favorite coffee, with extra cream, just how you like it." I looked up from my laptop and smiled. This was the Victoria I had fallen in love with, thoughtful, caring, attentive. "Thank you, love. You didn't have to do this." "Of course I did," she said, moving behind my chair to massage my shoulders. "You work so hard to take care of our family. The least I can do is take care of you." She kissed the top of my head, something she hadn't done in months. "I'm sorry I've been distant lately," she continued, her hands working on the tension in my shoulders. "I know I haven't been the best wife. But I want to change that. I want us to be happy again." I reached up and squeezed her hand. "We can work on it together, Victoria. Marriage is about working through the difficult times." If only I had known that she was working through them by planning to become a widow. "Drink your coffee before it gets cold," she said softly. I took a sip. It tasted slightly more bitter than usual, but coffee can be unpredictable. I didn't think anything of it. Victoria lingered in the office for a few minutes, tidying up papers that didn't need tidying, adjusting books on the shelf, making small talk about the children's school activities. I thought she was just being loving and attentive. She was actually making sure I drank the coffee. "I'll let you get back to work," she finally said. "Call me if you need anything." "I will. Thank you for the coffee, darling." She gave me another one of those smiles that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Anything for you, my love." 20 minutes later, my vision started blurring. At first, I thought I was just tired. I had been working long hours, staring at contracts and blueprints. Eye strain was normal, but then the letters on my laptop screen started swimming around like fish in a bowl. 30 minutes after drinking the coffee, my chest felt tight. I tried to take deep breaths, thinking maybe I was having anxiety about the upcoming meetings. The construction business is stressful. Land disputes, contractor issues, government regulations. Chest tightness came with the territory. But this felt different, like someone was sitting on my chest, pressing down with increasing weight. 40 minutes after drinking the coffee, I couldn't breathe properly. My chest was burning. My throat felt like it was closing. My hands were shaking so badly I couldn't type on my laptop. That's when I knew something was seriously wrong. "Victoria!" I called out, but my voice came out as a weak whisper. The sound barely made it past my lips. I tried to stand up from my chair, but my legs gave out immediately. I fell back down, my head spinning like I was drunk. I gripped the edge of my desk and tried again. This time I made it to my feet, but the room was spinning so violently I had to hold onto the wall to stay upright. I stumbled toward the office door, my heart pounding irregularly, my vision fading in and out like someone was adjusting the brightness of the world. That's when I saw her. Victoria was standing in the hallway just outside my office door, not running to help me, not calling for emergency services, not showing any concern whatsoever, just watching. With the same cold, calculating expression she'd had at breakfast. Our eyes met, and in that moment, I understood everything. "The coffee was delicious, wasn't it?" she said quietly, her voice completely calm. And I knew. My wife, the mother of my children, the woman I had shared my bed with for 15 years, was watching me die. She had poisoned me, and she was standing there waiting for it to work. I tried to speak, tried to ask her why, tried to beg for help, but my throat was too tight, my voice too weak. Victoria crossed her arms and leaned against the wall, like she was watching a movie she had seen before and was waiting for her favorite scene. "It shouldn't be much longer now," she said conversationally. "I researched it carefully. The combination should work quite quickly." Combination? She hadn't just given me one poison. She had mixed multiple substances to make sure I died. I collapsed against the wall, sliding down to sit on the floor. My vision was going dark around the edges. My chest felt like it was being crushed by an invisible weight. Victoria pulled out her phone, but not to call for help. She was timing something. I was losing consciousness when I heard footsteps running down the hallway. But they weren't Victoria's heels clicking on the marble floor. They were the soft slippers I heard every morning at 5 a.m. when Grace started preparing breakfast for the family. "Olga, what happened?" Grace's voice cut through the fog in my brain like a lifeline. I forced my eyes open and saw her kneeling beside me, her face full of genuine concern and fear. She immediately looked at the empty coffee cup in my office, then at Victoria standing calmly in the hallway, then back at me gasping for air on the floor. Grace was a quiet woman, but she wasn't stupid. She understood the situation instantly. "Madam Victoria," Grace said, her voice sharp in a way I had never heard before. "What did you give Olga to drink?" "I don't know what you're talking about," Victoria replied coolly. "He just collapsed. Maybe it's his heart. You know how hard he works." But Grace wasn't buying it. She grabbed her phone from her apron pocket and started dialing. "What are you doing?" Victoria asked, suddenly alarmed. "Calling ambulance," Grace said firmly. "Olga is dying." "Don't be dramatic," Victoria said, stepping forward. "He's probably just having a panic attack. He doesn't need an ambulance." But Grace was already talking to the emergency operator, giving our address, describing my symptoms, demanding immediate medical assistance. Then she did something that saved my life. Grace forced her fingers down my throat, making me vomit up whatever poison was left in my system. It was violent, painful, and absolutely necessary. She dragged me to the nearby bathroom, turned on the cold water in the sink, and kept me conscious by splashing water on my face. "Stay with me, Olga," she kept saying. "Help is coming. Stay awake." She held my head while I threw up everything in my stomach, including the coffee that was killing me. And when Victoria tried to stop her, actually tried to pull Grace away from helping me, Grace looked my wife dead in the eye and said something that changed everything. "Madam, I know what you did. I saw you putting something in that coffee this morning. And if Olga dies, the whole world will know you killed him." Victoria's face went white. "You don't know what you're talking about," she said, but her voice was shaking now. "I know exactly what I'm talking about," Grace replied, still holding me upright as I continued vomiting. "I've been watching you for weeks, the phone calls with Uncle Kunle, the papers you read on Tuesday night. The way you've been asking about Olga's schedule." Grace had seen everything. The quiet maid who moved through our house like a ghost had been witnessing my wife's betrayal the whole time. "I also know about the money you've been stealing from the business," Grace continued. "I clean Olga's office. I see the papers, I hear the phone calls you think nobody notices. Victoria was trapped, and she knew it. The ambulance arrived 12 minutes after Grace's call. By then, I was conscious but weak, most of the poison expelled from my system thanks to Grace's quick thinking. The paramedics stabilized me and rushed me to Lagos University Teaching Hospital. Grace rode with me in the ambulance, holding my hand and praying in Igbo. Victoria followed in her own car, playing the role of the concerned wife perfectly for the medical staff. But it was too late. Grace had already told the paramedics what she suspected. At the hospital, they pumped my stomach and ran blood tests. The toxicology report confirmed what Grace already knew. I had been poisoned with a combination of rat poison and sleeping pills mixed into my coffee. Victoria was arrested at the hospital before I was even fully conscious. The investigation that followed revealed the full extent of her betrayal. The affair with Kunle, the money they had stolen from my business, the properties they had bought together, the life they had been planning while pretending to love me. But most damning was Grace's testimony. Grace told the police and later the court everything she had observed over the months. The suspicious phone calls that ended when family members entered the room, the way Victoria would celebrate whenever I traveled for business, the secret meetings with Kunle when she thought the house was empty. Grace had been taking note of everything, not because she was spying, but because she cared about our family's well-being and noticed when things weren't right. The trial was a sensation in Lagos. The society wife who tried to murder her husband for money, the business partner who betrayed his friend, the loyal maid who saved her employer's life. Victoria was convicted of attempted murder and sentenced to 15 years in Kirikiri prison. Kunle was convicted of fraud and embezzlement. He received 10 years. But Grace, who earned 45,000 naira per month, who slept in the boys' quarters, who everyone treated like she was part of the furniture. Grace inherited 50 million naira from my new will, plus a 4-bedroom house in Lekki Phase 1, plus full scholarship funds for her 3 children to attend the best universities in Nigeria, plus the eternal gratitude of a man who learned the difference between loyalty and betrayal from almost dying. You see, when I was updating my will, I hadn't just been cutting Victoria out because of her affair and theft. I had also been thinking about the people who had truly been faithful to our family. In 8 years of working for us, Grace had never stolen so much as a tin of milk. She had never gossiped about our family business to the neighbors. She had never asked for salary advances or special favors. She loved our children like they were her own, scolding them when they misbehaved and celebrating when they did well in school. She cooked my food like she was feeding her own father, always making sure I ate properly even when I was too busy with work to pay attention to my health. While my wife of 15 years was planning my murder, Grace was praying for my health every morning at 5 a.m. I know because I heard her through the thin walls of the boys' quarters asking God to protect Oga and the family before she started her daily work. The lawyers asked me later, "How did you know to leave Grace so much money in your will? Did you suspect she would save your life?" The truth is, I didn't know she would save my life. How could I have predicted that Victoria would try to poison me? But I knew something else. I knew that character isn't about what people do when you're watching. It's about what they do when they think no one is looking. And Grace had been showing her character every single day for 8 years. Today, Grace runs her own catering business called Grace's Kitchen. She employs 12 people and caters events across Lagos. Her children are all in university, one studying medicine, one studying engineering, one studying law. She calls me Daddy now instead of Oga, and I call her my guardian angel. Victoria writes me letters from prison begging for forgiveness, promising that she has changed, asking me to help her appeal her conviction. I never read them. My children, who are now adults, have chosen not to visit their mother in prison. They understand what she tried to do, and they've made their own decision about forgiveness. They visit Grace every Sunday for lunch. Sometimes people ask me if I'm bitter about what Victoria did, if I feel foolish for not seeing the signs earlier. The truth is, I'm grateful. Grateful that I discovered her true nature before she succeeded in killing me. Grateful that my children learned early in life the difference between people who claim to love you and people who actually do. Grateful that I learned to see the value in quiet loyalty over loud declarations of love. And most of all, grateful for Grace, who proved that sometimes your guardian angel is the person you notice least. Last month, I walked Grace's eldest daughter down the aisle at her wedding. Her father had died when she was young, and Grace asked if I would do the honors. As we walked down the aisle together, Grace's daughter whispered to me, "Thank you for being the father my mother deserves, and for helping her become the mother we needed." In that moment, I understood something profound. Victoria had tried to take everything from me: my life, my money, my children's respect, my ability to trust. But what she actually did was help me find my real family. The family that chose to love me not because of my will or my wealth, but because of who I was when no one important was watching. Character reveals itself in crisis. Victoria's crisis was discovering she wouldn't inherit my money, and her character revealed itself through attempted murder. Grace's crisis was watching me die while my wife stood by and did nothing, and her character revealed itself through courage, quick thinking, and loyalty that saved my life. Money doesn't reveal who people really are. Crisis does. And in the biggest crisis of my life, I learned who my real family was. If this story taught you something about loyalty, about paying attention to the people who serve you faithfully, about the difference between those who love you and those who need you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Hit that notification bell for more true stories about betrayal, loyalty, and the people who save us when we least expect it. And remember, the person who would never ask for your inheritance might be the person who deserves it most. The person who wants to kill you for your money might be sleeping right next to you every night. But the person who will save your life is often the one you notice least. Pay attention to the grace in your life before it's too late. Sometimes your guardian angel wears a maid's uniform and works for 45,000 naira a month. Sometimes the most important person in your story is the one you almost forgot to include.